The Holy See, also called the See of Rome, the Petrine See or the Apostolic See, is the central governing body of the Catholic Church and the Vatican City. It encompasses the office of the Pope as the Bishop of the Apostolic Episcopal See of Rome, and serves as the spiritual and administrative authority of the worldwide Catholic Church and Vatican City. Under international law, the Holy See holds the status of a sovereign juridical entity. According to Catholic tradition and historical records, the Holy See was founded in the 1st century by Saint Peter and Saint Paul. By virtue of the doctrines of Petrine and papal primacy, it is the focal point of full communion for Catholics around the world. The Holy See is headquartered in, operates from, and exercises exclusive dominion over Vatican City, an independent city-state enclaved in Rome, and of which the Pope is the head of state. The Holy See is administered by the Roman Curia, which is composed of central institutions assisting the Pope and through which the affairs of the Catholic Church are conducted. The Roman Curia includes various dicasteries, comparable to ministries and executive departments, with the Cardinal Secretary of State as its chief administrator. Papal elections are carried out by members of the College of Cardinals. Although the Holy See is often metonymically referred to as the Vatican City State was distinctively established with the Lateran Treaty of 1929, agreed between the Holy See and Italy, to ensure the temporal, diplomatic, and spiritual independence of the papacy. As such, papal nuncios, who are papal diplomats to states and international organizations, are recognized as representing the Holy See and not the Vatican City State, as prescribed in the canon law of the Catholic Church. The Holy See is thus viewed as the central government of the Catholic Church and Vatican City. The Catholic Church, in turn, is the largest non-government provider of education and health care in the world. The Holy See maintains bilateral diplomatic relations with 180 sovereign states, signs concordats and treaties, and performs multilateral diplomacy with multiple intergovernmental organizations, including the United Nations and its agencies, the Council of Europe, the European Communities, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and the Organization of American States. The word see comes from the Latin word sedes, meaning seat, which refers to the episcopal throne, cathedra. The term apostolic see can refer to any see founded by one of the 12 apostles, but, when used with the definite article, it is used in the Catholic Church to refer specifically to the see of the Bishop of Rome, whom that church sees as the successor of Saint Peter. While Saint Peter's Basilica in Vatican City is perhaps the church most associated with the papacy, the actual cathedral of the Holy See is the Archbasilica of St. John Lateran in the city of Rome. In the Roman Catholic Church, only the see of the Pope bears the right to be addressed symbolically as holy. However, there was one exception to this rule, represented by the Bishopric of Mainz. During the Holy Roman Empire, the former Archbishopric of Mainz, which was also of electoral and primatial rank, had the privilege to bear the title of the Holy See of Mainz. According to Catholic tradition, the Apostolic See of Diocese of Rome was established in the 1st century by Saint Peter and Saint Paul. The legal status of the Catholic Church and its property was recognized by the Edict of Milan in 313 by Roman Emperor Constantine the Great, and it became the state church of the Roman Empire by the Edict of Thessalonica in 380 by Emperor Theodosius I. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476, the temporal legal jurisdiction of the papal primacy was further recognized as promulgated in canon law. The Holy See was granted territory in Duchy of Rome by the donation of Sutri in 728 of King Liutprand of the Lombards, and sovereignty by the donation of Pepin in 756 by King Pepin of the Franks. The Papal States thus held extensive territory and armed forces in 756 to 1870. Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne as Roman Emperor by Translatio Imperii in 800. The Pope's temporal power peaked around the time of the papal coronations of the emperors of the Holy Roman Empire from 858, and the Dictatus Papae in 1075, which conversely also described papal deposing power. Several modern states still trace their own sovereignty to recognition in medieval papal bulls. The sovereignty of the Holy See was retained despite multiple sacks of Rome during the early Middle Ages. Yet, relations with the Kingdom of Italy and the Holy Roman Empire were at times strained, reaching from the Diploma Ottonianum and Libellus de Imperatoria Potestate in Urbi Roma regarding the patrimony of St. Peter in the 10th century, to the investiture controversy in 1076–1122, and settled again by the Concordat of Worms in 1122. The exiled Avignon papacy during 1309–1376 also put a strain on the papacy, which however finally returned to Rome. Pope Innocent X was critical of the Peace of Westphalia in 1648 as it weakened the authority of the Holy See throughout much of Europe. Following the French Revolution, the Papal States were briefly occupied as the Roman Republic from 1798 to 1799 as a sister republic of the First French Empire under Napoleon, before their territory was re-established. Notwithstanding, the Holy See was represented in and identified as a permanent subject of general customary international law vis-a-vis all states in the Congress of Vienna, 1814–1815. The Papal States were recognized under the rule of the papacy and largely restored to their former extent. Despite the capture of Rome in 1870 by the Kingdom of Italy and the Roman question during the Savoyard era, which made the Pope a prisoner in the Vatican from 1870 to 1929, its international legal subject was constituted by the ongoing reciprocity of diplomatic relationships that not only were maintained but multiplied. The Lateran Treaty on February 11, 1929 between the Holy See and Italy recognized Vatican City as an independent city-state, along with extraterritorial properties around the region. Since then, Vatican City is distinct from yet under full ownership, exclusive dominion, and sovereign authority and jurisdiction of the Holy See. The Holy See is one of the last remaining 7 absolute monarchies in the world, along with Saudi Arabia, Eswatini, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Brunei, and Oman. The Pope governs the Catholic Church through the Roman Curia. The Curia consists of a complex of offices that administer church affairs at the highest level, including the Secretariat of State, 9 congregations, 3 tribunals, 11 pontifical councils, and 7 pontifical commissions. The Secretariat of State, under the Cardinal Secretary of State, directs and coordinates the Curia. The incumbent, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, is the see's equivalent of a prime minister. Archbishop Paul Gallagher, Secretary of the Section for Relations with States of the Secretariat of State, acts as the Holy See's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Parolin was named in his role by Pope Francis on August 31, 2013. The Secretariat of State is the only body of the Curia that is situated within Vatican City. The others are in buildings in different parts of Rome that have extraterritorial rights similar to those of embassies. Among the most active of the major curial institutions are the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, which oversees the Catholic Church's doctrine, the Congregation for Bishops, which coordinates the appointment of bishops worldwide, the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, which oversees all missionary activities, and the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, which deals with international peace and social issues. 3 tribunals exercise judicial power. The Roman Rota handles normal judicial appeals, the most numerous being those that concern alleged nullity of marriage. The Apostolic Signatura is the supreme appellate and administrative court concerning decisions even of the Roman Rota and administrative decisions of ecclesiastical superiors, bishops and superiors of religious institutes, such as closing a parish or removing someone from office. It also oversees the work of other ecclesiastical tribunals at all levels. The Apostolic Penitentiary deals not with external judgments or decrees, but with matters of conscience, granting absolutions from censures, dispensations, commutations, validations, condonations, and other favors. It also grants indulgences. The Prefecture for the Economic Affairs of the Holy See coordinates the finances of the Holy See departments and supervises the administration of all offices, whatever be their degree of autonomy, that manage these finances. The most important of these is the administration of the patrimony of the Apostolic See. The prefecture of the papal household is responsible for the organization of the papal household, audiences, and ceremonies, apart from the strictly liturgical part. One of Pope Francis's goals is to reorganize the Curia to prioritize its role in the Church's mission to evangelize. This reform insists that the Curia is not meant to be a centralized bureaucracy, but rather a service for the Pope and diocesan bishops that is in communication with local bishops' conferences. Likewise, more lay people are to be involved in the workings of the dicasteries and in giving them input. The Holy See does not dissolve upon a pope's death or resignation. It instead operates under a different set of laws sed vacanti. During this interregnum, the heads of the dicasteries of the Curia, such as the prefects of congregations, cease immediately to hold office, the only exceptions being the major penitentiary, who continues his important role regarding absolutions and dispensations, and the Camerlengo of the Holy Roman Church, who administers the temporalities, i.e., properties and finances, of the See of St. Peter during this period. The government of the See, and therefore of the Catholic Church, then falls to the College of Cardinals. Canon law prohibits the College and the Camerlengo from introducing any innovations or novelties in the government of the Church during this period. In 2001, the Holy See had a revenue of 422.098 billion Italian lire, about $202 million at the time, and a net income of 17.720 billion Italian lire, about $8 million. According to an article by David Lee in The Guardian newspaper, a 2012 report from the Council of Europe identified the value of a section of the Vatican's property assets as an amount in excess of €680 million, £570 million, as of January 2013. Paolo Menini, a papal official in Rome, manages this portion of the Holy See's assets consisting of British investments, other European holdings and a currency trading arm. The Guardian newspaper described Menini and his role in the following manner. Paolo Menini, who is in effect the Pope's merchant banker. Menini heads a special unit inside the Vatican called the Extraordinary Division of APSA, Amministrazione del Patrimonio della Sede Apostolica, which handles the patrimony of the Holy See. The orders, decorations, and medals of the Holy See are conferred by the Pope as temporal sovereign and fons honorum of the Holy See, similar to the orders awarded by other heads of state. The Holy See has been recognized, both in state practice and in the writing of modern legal scholars, as a subject of public international law with rights and duties analogous to those of states. Although the Holy See, as distinct from the Vatican City state, does not fulfill the long-established criteria in international law of statehood having a permanent population, a defined territory, a stable government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other states, its possession of full legal personality in international law is shown by the fact that it maintains diplomatic relations with 180 states, that it is a member state in various intergovernmental international organizations, and that it is respected by the international community of sovereign states and treated as a subject of international law, having the capacity to engage in diplomatic relations and to enter into binding agreements with one, several, or many states under international law that are largely geared to establish and preserving peace in the world. Since medieval times, the Episcopal See of Rome has been recognized as a sovereign entity. The Holy See, not the State of Vatican City, maintains formal diplomatic relations with and for the most recent establishment of diplomatic relations with 183 sovereign states and also with the European Union, and the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, as well as having relations of a special character with the Palestine Liberation Organization. 69 of the diplomatic missions accredited to the Holy See are situated in Rome. The Holy See maintains 180 permanent diplomatic missions abroad, of which 74 are non-residential, so that many of its 106 concrete missions are accredited to 2 or more countries or international organizations. The diplomatic activities of the Holy See are directed by the Secretariat of State, headed by the Cardinal Secretary of State, through the Section for Relations with States. There are 12 internationally recognized states with which the Holy See does not have relations. The Holy See is the only European subject of international law that has diplomatic relations with the government of the Republic of China, Taiwan, as representing China, rather than the government of the People's Republic of China. The British Foreign and Commonwealth Office speaks of Vatican City as the capital of the Holy See, although it compares the legal personality of the Holy See to that of the Crown in Christian monarchies and declares that the Holy See and the State of Vatican City are two international identities. It also distinguishes between the employees of the Holy See, 2,750 working in the Roman Curia with another 333 working in the Holy See's diplomatic missions abroad, and the 1,909 employees of the Vatican City State. The British ambassador to the Holy See uses more precise language, saying that the Holy See is not the same as the Vatican City State. It is the universal government of the Catholic Church and operates from the Vatican City State. This agrees exactly with the expression used by the website of the United States Department of State, in giving information on both the Holy See and the Vatican City State. It too says that the Holy See operates from the Vatican City State. The Holy See is a member of various international organizations and groups including the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, International Telecommunication Union, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNCR. The Holy See is also a permanent observer in various international organizations, including the United Nations General Assembly, the Council of Europe, UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, the World Trade Organization, WTO, and the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. The Holy See participates as an observer to African Union, Arab League, Council of Europe, the Non-Aligned Movement, NAM, Organization of American States, International Organization for Migration, and in the United Nations and its agencies FAO, ILO, UNCTAD, UNEP, UNESCO, UNHABITAT, UNCR, UNIDO, UNWTO, WFP, WHO, WIPO. And as a full member in IAEA, OPCW, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE. Although the Holy See is closely associated with Vatican City, the independent territory over which the Holy See is sovereign, the two entities are separate and distinct. After the Italian seizure of the Papal States in 1870, the Holy See had no territorial sovereignty. In spite of some uncertainty among jurists as to whether it could continue to act as an independent personality in international matters, the Holy See continued in fact to exercise the right to send and receive diplomatic representatives, maintaining relations with states that included the major powers Russia, Prussia, and Austria-Hungary. Where, in accordance with the decision of the 1815 Congress of Vienna, the nuncio was not only a member of the diplomatic corps but its dean, this arrangement continued to be accepted by the other ambassadors. In the course of the 59 years during which the Holy See held no territorial sovereignty, the number of states that had diplomatic relations with it, which had been reduced to 16, actually increased to 29. The State of the Vatican City was created by the Lateran Treaty in 1929 to ensure the absolute and visible independence of the Holy See and to guarantee to it indisputable sovereignty in international affairs. Archbishop Jean-Louis Touron, the Holy See's former Secretary for Relations with States, said that Vatican City is a minuscule support state that guarantees the spiritual freedom of the Pope with the minimum territory. The Holy See, not Vatican City, maintains diplomatic relations with states. Foreign embassies are accredited to the Holy See, not to Vatican City, and it is the Holy See that establishes treaties and concordats with other sovereign entities. When necessary, the Holy See will enter a treaty on behalf of Vatican City. Under the terms of the Lateran Treaty, the Holy See has extraterritorial authority over various sites in Rome and 2 Italian sites outside of Rome, including the Pontifical Palace at Castel Gandolfo. The same authority is extended under international law over the Apostolic Nunciature of the Holy See in a foreign country. Though, like various European powers, Earlier popes recruited Swiss mercenaries as part of an army. The Pontifical Swiss Guard was founded by Pope Julius II on January 22, 1506 as the personal bodyguards of the Pope and continues to fulfill that function. It is listed in the Annuario Pontificio under Holy See, not under State of Vatican City. At the end of 2005, the Guard had 134 members. Recruitment is arranged by a special agreement between the Holy See and Switzerland. All recruits must be Catholic, unmarried males with Swiss citizenship who have completed basic training with the Swiss Armed Forces with certificates of good conduct, be between the ages of 19 and 30 and be at least 175 centimeters, 5 feet 9 inches, in height. Members are armed with small arms and the traditional halberd, also called the Swiss Volge, and trained in bodyguarding tactics. The police force within Vatican City, known as the Corps of Gendarmerie of Vatican City, belongs to the city-state, not to the Holy See. The Holy See signed the UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, a binding agreement for negotiations for the total elimination of nuclear weapons. The Vatican City State is a neutral nation, which has not engaged in any war since its formation in 1929 by the Lateran Treaty. It has no formal military compact or agreement with neighboring Italy, although responsibility for defending the Vatican City from an international aggressor is likely to lie primarily with the Italian armed forces. When presenting the Lateran Treaty to the Italian Parliament in 1929, Benito Mussolini declared, "It is evident that we the Italian state will be the necessary guarantors of this neutrality and inviolability of Vatican City, since, in the remote hypothesis someone wanted to hurt her, he would first have to violate our territory." Although the Vatican City State has never been at war, it was exposed, together with properties of the Holy See in Rome, to bombings during World War II. Although the former Papal States were defended by a relatively large papal army, including the Corsican Guard, active from 1603 to 1662, and a papal navy, a majority of these forces were disbanded when the Papal States ceased to exist in 1870. Immediately prior to the disbandment, the Esercito Pontificio, Papal Army, comprised 2 regiments of locally recruited Italian infantry, 2 Swiss regiments, a battalion of Irish volunteers, artillery, and dragoons, plus the International Catholic Volunteer Corps, the Papal Zouaves, formed in 1861 to oppose Italian unification. Following defeat and abolition of the states by the Kingdom of Italy, 4 small papal units, the Pontifical Swiss Guard, the Noble Guard, the Palatine Guard, and the Papal Gendarmerie Corps, were retained, but restricted their activity to the Vatican in Rome. Upon the 1929 formation of the Vatican City State, a unique form of sovereignty was defined. Under this agreement, sovereignty is vested in the much more ancient Holy See, which is an ecclesiastical jurisdiction, but that sovereignty is exercised over the actual nation-state of the Vatican City, an area of 49 hectares, 120 acres, defined in a map appended to the treaty, together with certain other properties formally located within the Italian state, but granted extraterritoriality. The Vatican City State has never had independent armed forces, but it has always had a de facto military provided by the armed forces of the Holy See, the Pontifical Swiss Guard, the Noble Guard, the Palatine Guard, and the Papal Gendarmerie Corps. In practical terms, these armed forces have operated chiefly within the Vatican City State and the Papal Palace of Castel Gandolfo, and not in the many other extraterritorial properties of the Holy See, except during the time of World War II when troops of the Palatine Guard were deployed to all papal properties in and around Rome. As part of a major reform in 1970 by Pope Paul VI, 2 of the units were disbanded, 1 was retained, and 1 was restructured into a civilian police service. The Palatine Guard, Italian, Guardia Palatina di Onore, was formed in 1850 by Pope Pius IX, through amalgamation of 2 older units of the Papal Army. The Corps was formed as an infantry unit. It saw active service during the token resistance to the occupation of Rome by Italian government troops in 1870, and it survived into the period of the Vatican City State, as a de facto Vatican military unit, including a ceremonial military band, from 1929 to 1970. In September 1943, when German troops occupied Rome in response to Italy's conclusion of an armistice with the Allies, the Palatine Guard was charged with protecting Vatican City, various Vatican properties in Rome, and the Pope's summer villa at Castel Gandolfo. The guardsmen patrolled the walls, gardens, and courtyards of Vatican City, and stood guard at the entrances to papal buildings around Rome. On more than one occasion this service resulted in violent confrontations with Italian fascist police units working with the German authorities to arrest political refugees who were hiding in buildings protected by the Vatican. In September 1939, the Palatine Guard numbered 500 men. By the liberation of Rome in June 1944 the corps had grown to 2,000 men. Later the corps returned to its smaller size, and to chiefly ceremonial duties. It was abolished on September 14, 1970 by Pope Paul VI. The Noble Guard, Italian, Guardia Nobile, was formed in 1801 by Pope Pius VII. The regiment was formed as a heavy cavalry unit. It was part of the Pope's personal guard, providing a mounted escort for the Pope when he traveled in his carriage. It saw no active military engagements. The Guard performed special missions within the Papal States until their abolition, and then continued to function at the Vatican with a limited mounted escort role. It survived, no longer with horses, into the period of the Vatican City State, as a de facto Vatican military unit from 1929 to 1970. During World War II members of the unit mounted guard outside the papal apartments by night and day, and guardsmen armed with pistols provided close protection to Pope Pius XII when he took his daily walks in the Vatican gardens. During its period as a Vatican City State military unit, the Noble Guard never numbered above 70 men, and apart from the wartime period it performed chiefly ceremonial duties. As its membership was drawn exclusively from families of noble origin, from nobility across Europe, it came to be seen as elitist, and it was abolished on September 14, 1970 by Pope Paul VI. The Pontifical Swiss Guard was formed in 1506 by Pope Julius II. The unit was formed as the personal bodyguard of the Pope. At various points in its history the Swiss Guard has seen active service, but following the 1870 abolition of the Papal States it returned to its chief role as a bodyguard, with a limited ceremonial role, and survived into the period of the Vatican City State, as a de facto Vatican military unit from 1929. The Swiss Guard continues to fulfill the bodyguard function and provides security at the Apostolic Palace and the Papal Palace of Castel Gandolfo. In cooperation with the Corps of Gendarmerie of Vatican City it also controls access to the entrances to the city-state. Since the attempted assassination of the Pope in 1981 the Swiss Guard has undertaken more rigorous training, and a far more active security role, alongside its traditional ceremonial duties. Since the early 20th century the Guard has returned to its original practice of recruiting only Swiss nationals. As of 2005, the Guard had 134 members. All recruits complete basic military training with the Swiss Army before transferring to the Vatican and must be Catholics and at least 174 centimeters, 5 feet 8.5 in height. Members are armed with small arms for practical purposes, and for ceremonial functions the ranks carry the traditional halberd, also called the Swiss Volge. The corporals and vice-corporals either patty sans pole arms or Flamenschwert two-handed swords, while officers do not carry weapons, but command batons only. Although the Pontifical Swiss Guard's first duty is the service of the Pope, during periods of sed vacanti, when the office of Pope is vacant, the Swiss Guard instead guards the College of Cardinals, as they meet to elect a new Bishop of Rome. The Papal Gendarmerie Corps was formed in 1816 by Pope Pius VII, originally under the name of Papal Carabinieri Corps. The unit was formed as a military police unit. In 1849 Pope Pius IX renamed it as the Papal Velites Regiment, and subsequently as the Papal Gendarmerie Corps. It saw active military engagements in the battles which culminated in the seizure and abolition of the Papal States. It survived, greatly reduced in size, into the period of the Vatican City State, as a de facto Vatican military unit from 1929 to 1970, providing internal security. The elaborate ceremonial uniform, of 19th century origin, included bearskin headdresses with red plumes, black coates with white fringed epaulets, white doeskin breeches, and knee-high riding boots. The day-to-day service dress uniform included bicorn hats and blue trousers. In 1970 the Corps was transformed into a civilian police unit named the Central Security Office. In 1991 it was renamed the Security Corps of Vatican City State. Finally, in 2002 its policing role was redefined, and it was given its current name of Gendarmerie Corps of Vatican City State, a title which links it back to its original military foundation. The military unit's elaborate ceremonial uniforms continued in use until 1970. These have been simplified, and its structures are all now those of a civilian police service, with modern uniforms and equipment. However, the civilian corps does retain some ceremonial functions, including the provision of the Vatican City State ceremonial marching band. The coat of arms of the Holy See also has no background shield, as can be seen on its official website and on the Holy See passports. A Vatican passport, Italian, Passaporto Vaticano, is a passport issued by the Holy See or by Vatican City State. The Holy See issues diplomatic and service passports, while the Vatican City State can issue ordinary passports for its citizens. The Holy See and the Vatican City State are two subjects of international law and are presided over by the Pope through the Secretariat of State of the Holy See and the Governorate of Vatican City State respectively. Each of these two entities issues its own passports. Of the approximately 800 residents of Vatican City, over 450 have Vatican citizenship. These include the approximately 135 Swiss Guards. About the same number of citizens of the state live in various countries, chiefly in the diplomatic service of the Holy See. The Vatican City State Law on Citizenship, Residence, and Access, which was promulgated on February 22, 2011, classifies citizens into three categories. Cardinals resident in Vatican City or in Rome. Diplomats of the Holy See. Persons residing in Vatican City because of their office or service. Only for the third category is an actual grant of citizenship required. Diplomatic passports of the Holy See, not passports of the Vatican State, are held by those in the Holy See's diplomatic service. Service passports of the Holy See can be issued to people in the service of the Holy See even if not citizens of Vatican City. Vatican City passports are issued to citizens of the state who are not in the service of the Holy See. Passports issued by Vatican City are in Italian, French, and English. Those issued by the Holy See are in Latin, French, and English. Thank you for watching this video.